All right, welcome everybody to our session C, and we will be pleased to hear from this group of people here, and not all of them will be presenting, so just as I introduce them, if they could just kind of stand up so you know who they are. So we have Jeff Spears, who will be presenting to us today, Amanda Deliman, did I say that correctly? Hannah Lewis, Kim Hales, and Jen Evers. And I'll go ahead and turn it over. Jeff, are you starting?
Yeah.
Okay. There you go.
Do you want the lights on or off? What's everyone feeling? Does anyone feel strongly about turning them on?
I don't know if they're
just wait.
LED devices.
And we want to recognize too Mike Christiansen and also Jim LaMuth. They weren't able to make it today, but they did contribute to the presentation. And really what we want to kind of talk about is documenting the mentorship, not only through the faculty mentorship program that we have on the statewide campus, but also Logan faculty. You know, I do think this is applicable for mentoring students in your own capacity as faculty members. And the way we're set up on the statewide system is we have 2 regional directors, which is Kim and Amanda, and then we also have faculty coordinators is what we call them. So these are faculty coordinators that represent each campus through the statewide system. So Hannah represents Eastern, Paul is here, it represents Twilla, David Baca represents Blanding. Do we have any other faculty? Oh, right here, Chad Painter out of Brigham City for faculty mentorship. So if you're interested in the program, we're going to talk about that at the latter part of the presentation. Please contact them. So I'm going to turn it over to Kim to kind of talk a little bit about starting out soft in the presentation.
Do you want to forward the slides for me? Okay. All right, so the first thing that we're curious about is how many of you, let me back up. So how many of you came to this session for a specific reason? I mean, we know that some of you know us and you love us and we're grateful that you're here. But regarding mentorship, how many of you are here like with a specific goal or a specific question, or you came here hoping that we were going to present a specific theme that maybe we can customize to? Go ahead.
Documenting.
Okay, specific, like documenting, like yeah.
I have helped with mentoring,
I didn't
so.
do this slide, Jeff did, so we totally set me up for that one.
So how do we document it?
Yeah,
in the
so
best way?
mentoring feels intuitive, right? It's a little bit tricky. How do we document talking to a student in our office? Good.
A lot of my student mentorship is with doctoral students not here at Utah State University. There are different institutions across the U.S.
Interesting.
In particular, I deal with what I'll call a diverse group of students that the Trump administration would not appreciate me putting in my documentation.
Yeah.
But, so how do I document outside of, like, the mentorship that's gone outside of the USU institution?
Okay, great. Who else? Anyone else? Kind of think we're hitting all of these things at once.
The different types of student mentorship.
Okay.
Like I observe student teachers, but I also help other undergraduate students.
Right, research.
Yeah, research.
Those kinds of things.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, good. And then specifically, talk to me about what some of your mentoring roles are. How many of you are formally assigned as a mentor? Awesome. How many of you can specifically think of specific students that you're informally mentoring, but you've been working with a specific student for a period of time, but informally? Great. What other mentor roles do you feel like you're filling right now that maybe are not recognized, that we don't always talk about? Similar to what you just said, right? Like maybe you're mentoring people outside of Utah State or outside of your program.
Or in the community.
Yeah, or in the community. I think some of you that are in the AV, I knew you were going to say that, right?
Sorry.
No, I was looking for you. I'm like, yeah, specifically, let's talk about that. I'll let you explain.
So we do quite a bit with educators and mentoring high school teachers, how to teach aviation and how to feel successful teaching something that is honestly kind of difficult to teach. We do a lot of mentoring in statewide campuses. I have mentees in Vernal, in Blanding, in Price, in Brigham City, and then obviously up in Logan, and just kind of navigating all of that.
And those are folks that you're not formally assigned to as a mentor.
No, definitely not formally
You just
assigned
sort of
to.
find them and they navigate towards you.
Or they find me,
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
You're a mentor magnet. Okay, who else? What else? What are there some other types of mentoring? Okay, so let's see how many, oh, sorry.
Graduate students, I do 100% online master's degree, and I do all the capstone project students. And so I've had some challenges trying to, how to integrate and mentor them. So that's my goal, is to see if, I mean, undergraduates face-to-face is one thing, but online mentoring through asynchronous communication is a little more
A little tricky, yeah. And as statewide campus folks, this is sort of where we live and breathe, because the reason that this program started is we found out through our research that the reasons that students leave college, primarily one of the top 5 reasons, is they lack a sense of belonging. They don't have a touch point with a faculty that makes them feel like they have someone that belongs to them, that is their job to keep track of them. And so then they get a little bit of an imposer thing going on where they feel like they're bugging you. And they'll bug you until they stop bugging you, and then maybe you don't notice they're gone because they're not formally assigned to you, and then you realize a year later, oh, that student isn't with us anymore or with their program anymore, and that is unacceptable to us, and that's actually how this program started. Okay, who's next? Amanda.
Okay, well, thank you all for sharing your ideas, because we're going to touch on those, and I'm really delighted to share that. So we're going to talk a little bit about identifying key strategies for documenting mentorship, ensuring clarity and alignment, and we're going to give you lots of examples of how we do it. We share ideas with each other, and we hope that we can also learn from you and some of the things that you're doing. You'll consider how to develop a framework for showcasing the impact of mentorship on student success and retention, and then we'll explore evidence-based approaches to effectively present mentorship as a vital aspect of your work. So once again, we're going to give you very specific examples of some of our dossier documentation and see if that can help you frame some of the work that you do. And how we do this is we take the rule statement language and directly apply it. So I copied and pasted some of the rule statement language that I have in my own documentation. I think this aligns with a lot of different people, depending on what your rule statement looks like. A good reminder from a mentor that I had when I went through the teaching documentation workshop was to use that specific rule statement language. And I think, Hannah, you have a really good slide that you're going to share about how you copy and paste some of that language in yours. So looking across teaching, we're going to look at engagement outside of the classroom, supervising independent studies, and participating in service learning. So some of the things that you had all mentioned in what you'd like to learn from this, we're going to make some connections there. Some of us have stronger research rule statements than others, so we're going to give a few examples of how we add that information into our dossiers. And then once again, service. This is what mentorship is, right? We're mentoring all around, as some of the examples you provided. So we're going to talk a little bit about how we can connect that to our rule statement language.
So I really like the last slide about clearly outlining your mentorship role. So this is kind of where I started, as I went to my actual role statement and looked at the idea of advising, right, or mentorship, to decide, you know, do I put it in my teaching, do I put it in my research, do I put it in my service? And for me, it falls under teaching with the mentorship role with my role statement as a social worker. So then I can clearly articulate how I'm doing that within the classroom. And I'm going to give you some examples in that. Some of you might have it in research, those that have more of a research role. That might be where you have graduate students or you have TAs that you can work with. So it really kind of depends on where that role statement is. But I'll also talk a little bit about double dipping, because I think a lot of times we're doing teaching mentoring that we can also kind of talk about in our research statements as well. So a lot of times they are transferable amongst all three of those different aspects of our teaching role statement, or our role statements. Keeping a running list of students you mentor, so that could be people you mentor at Utah State or within the community, and identifying maybe where you're mentoring them in what capacity, right? So working with those PhD students, for me it's undergrad students, so as I'll show in a little bit is a tally of how many students I've been assigned, and seeing the growth throughout the years, but keeping a list of the students that you mentored is something that we talk a lot about in the chapter that we wrote that we'll kind of get to in a minute. Retention rates, success stories. I always reach out to those mentees to ask for maybe a letter to put in my dossier. I feel like that's a really good thing to do at least once a year. So sometimes they just send me emails and I just ask them if I can keep it. So it really kind of depends, but they like to see those stories in your materials to kind of show, okay, this mentorship helped me get into graduate school, or helped me get a really good job, or kept me, right, as the retention in college, which I think are the best stories. And then surveys or testimonials, a lot of times you'll see this in IDEA. You might have an assignment that has a mentorship component. You might do, like in social work, we do a research project every year. So a lot of times that project is presented at, the symposium here in Logan, but we also have the statewide research symposium that we started a few years ago. So that can matriculate into you discussing that within your promotional packets. So now we're going to focus on some examples from our submitted promotional packets and talk through why we decided to kind of do it this way, and maybe spark some ideas that you might have about documenting. So I'll ask Kim to come talk about hers.
I'm used to shouting at my students, so they were like, you have to use the mic pack. Fine. Okay, so a couple things. When I started at Utah State, I started as an adjunct, and 3 or 4 years in, I received a full-time appointment. 4 or 5 years after that, someone said, how long have you been with the university? I'm like, I don't know, really long time. And my boss, I got a new AVP out in Roosevelt, and he said, we need to get your promotion materials together. Say what? The problem with adjunct is everyone's your boss and no one's your boss. Anybody here done adjuncting work? Yeah, everybody's your boss and nobody's your boss. Add that to the fact that I'm at a statewide campus. Everybody's my boss, nobody's my boss. I'm in the English department. Everybody's my boss. Beth, don't listen. Nobody's my boss. So it can be good, it can be bad. But I struggled to get guidance. In the middle of that, my department chair changed. We hired a compositionist, which was amazing, and that was when the ball really got rolling for me to start thinking about how are you documenting. But also then that meant I had to go backward and try to document, which was horrible and painful. So learn from me. So a couple of things. One, you have to pick a type of documentation that works for you that allows you to keep all your artifacts in one place. Mine were everywhere. So I have folders all over my computer, and it felt really organized, but what it really was the mixed up files of Mrs. Basil E. Frankwiller. Now you know how old I am. So find a place that works for you, and I highly recommend one of 3. So either learn how to maximize ETE's micro-credentialing and badges, because it's a great place to store your work and create artifacts as you go. Jeff talks about being able to just migrate stuff over from his ETE badges into his promotion materials. I didn't have that luxury. The second thing is, it used to be called digital measures. I don't have digital measures up here. And now it's called Watermark, and it is a repository that the university has for you, that you can go and you can put artifacts, and you can put narratives, you can put your CV, you can put awards, and it's really important that you just get in the habit of maybe once a month, that you just get on your Watermark and you start adding to it. Interfolio. I didn't actually see the interfolio until it was unlocked for me to start putting things into, after I had spent 6 months of blood, sweat, tears, and anxiety over making sure I had everything correct. And then interfolio opened and I went, my stuff is all wrong. and I had to start all over, breaking things apart and putting it where it would fit into Interfolio. So you all have an Interfolio, interfolio.usu.edu. Go there. It's locked. You can't put things in it until it unlocks, but you can look at it, and you can, once you've put things in it, you can look at what you've put in it. You just can't make changes to it until it's unlocked. And once you're ready to go up, it unlocks and you migrate everything over. So I would say make friends with Interfolio before you start doing your documentation, and customize your documentation to your Interfolio folder, okay? And then finally, we're going to talk about spreadsheets later, right? Sure. Okay, so I'll just leave Watermark and Interfolio for right now, and we'll move on. But my advice is find a spot and get all your stuff in one spot. Oh, wait.
And I mentioned this in an earlier session about the narrative. So you have, like, obviously the number of mentees, mentors, and this is on the Price campus because I was the faculty chair, and then also personal mentees, right? So I like to do between 2 and 4 is about what I'll take each semester. But I kind of crafted, you know, what is my narrative around supporting some of these students? So for me, being the faculty chair is growing the program in Price. You know, at one point we were over 90 students that were involved in the program. And, you know, what we did is obviously using Welcome Back Day connections has been huge for us to get mentees. We are now trying to talk to all the connections programs on the statewide system or in the statewide system to recruit those students. So to me, that added to the numbers that I can count, the numbers that I can kind of talk about in my dossier, and then also too, what am I doing with those students? So a lot of times I would do presentations with them. So as Kim said, as you're filling out your ETE badge for a presentation, take that paragraph that you've written or whatever you've added to it, and I put it into a Word document. So I did engage, implement, and contribute. And every time I submitted a badge, I would just copy and paste it, knowing I'll go back later and tell that narrative, right? Or work on it more. But at least then I didn't have to go back and look through all my ETE submissions, right? I would have it all right there in a Word document that I can kind of use, right? So that's what I mean by doing it then and there. Having the time is really good. For me, once this box was created, the only thing I had to do is like add another line about how many more mentees I've had for the additional year. And that's what I do every year is I update. I have like, I don't know, 8 tables that I just add what did I do that year in that area. So it's easy to kind of add to it, but I did find spending a little bit of time in December and also in May made the promotion, it wasn't easy, it was easier, I guess, where I didn't scramble to say, well, what did I do for the last 5 years, right, or 6 years? So just being able to kind of do that is important. But I always, my committee loved the narrative that I would tell behind it is not only just the numbers, but explain to me how that met your mentorship or advising requirement under your teaching scope of your role statement. And this one's Hannah's.
Can I have the next 3 or 4 slides?
Yep.
Cool. So I went to the teaching documentation workshop whenever that was, whenever I went to that. And when they told me to go, it was later than it should have been. But when Sunshine told me to go, that's when that happened. But one of the things that I thought was really, really interesting is I kind of had my mentorship narrative buried down at like bullet point number 7 under my teaching documentation. And it's also a little bit in my research and in my service. Like we said, I doubled, triple dipped in that. But I have a 90% teaching role, 5% research, 5% service. And so I wanted to highlight it in my teaching as well. And I had it buried. And one of the interesting things that happened is in the mentor that they had assigned to me in the teaching documentation workshop, he said, this is amazing. Let's move it up to almost number 1. And I thought, really, I didn't realize how I was particularly recording mentorship was so much more than so many other people doing. And if you're here, you're doing mentorship in that way. So bump it up the list is my biggest recommendation. Talk about it. It is important. I mean, our number 1 thing should be how we are affecting students, and how we are affecting students. Isn't mentorship huge in that, right? Like we're teaching in the classroom too, but mentorship is huge. So I have a major, and then the other thing is I solicited quotes from them. I didn't ask for a full-on letter. I asked for quotable quotes, and I included those in my materials. They like me, and if they like me, they're going to write something nice, and they wrote great things. So it worked out great, but it's soliciting quotes in the moment, like they are leaving, they're going on to do other things. Hey, can you take a minute and write 3 or 4 sentences? Give me something, and then I just collect those in a Word document. So now I need to take advantage of what both Jeff and Kim were saying, where they like have one thing. I don't have one thing. I have like 3 things, but I forget, and I have a hard time with all that collection, and I'm a little more scatterbrained. So one of the things that I do to make it a little easier for me, so if you're baseline like me, and you're thinking like, I'm going to have you know yourself, and you're like, I'm not going to collect it all one place. If you're there, here's one small action step you can do. In your calendar, because if you're like me, you also have to have a calendar item for everything, right? Okay, I see lots of nodding. Yes. Put a tagline when you create something in calendar. This is something for my promotion materials. Add the word promotion or something, and then you can go search in your calendar and find them all when you're writing about them. Right? It's baseline. Like you can think about it when you're entering it in, or tell Siri to do it. It's great. It's easy. So, and then eventually aspire to be like Kim.
Don't aspire to be like Don't do it.
Yeah. Another thing that I did here is I talked about the research aspect of it. If you have any research aspect, I talked about that research aspect very minorly in the teaching documentation, and then I expanded on it in my research section. So I am double dipping here, but I'm talking about it there because it does fit. Mentorship research fits under the role of teaching. It all overlaps. So make sure to make those connections for the people that are reading your documentation. And then I also quoted my research statement. This is what it says in my research statement, and then this is how it fits. And then talking about how it's impacting students and yourself. I thought that was a really good feedback that I got from in the teaching documentation workshop, was to talk about impacts. They're big on impacts. How does it impact? And I hadn't thought about it in that way, but we have some actual numbers. And if you have different kinds of impacts, this student went on to get a job, this student went on to graduate, this student has now published and done whatever. Those are impacts. But I also had impacts on me, and they didn't mention I add this. They wanted impacts on students. But I added, I'm like, you know what, this has had an impact on me. And so I added in a paragraph, this is how mentoring has improved my teaching, because it's the teaching section. Okay.
Okay, and just giving one more example here. I also attended the teaching documentation workshop. Who has attended here? Anyone? If you haven't, ask your department head to get your name on the list or push your name forward. It was incredibly beneficial. So in my self-narrative, I wanted to talk a little bit about each of the ways that I implement mentorship across my roles. And so I broke down each section, and then in teaching documentation, in research portfolio, I was able to add and go above what's listed here. Because as you know, we only have about 5 pages in our self-assessment, X number of pages in your teaching narrative, and so you're going to be double dipping, and you sort of decide which thing needs to be showing more in each area. So from my mentor, I was given this feedback to really take advantage of italicizing and separating so that it's not just one big paragraph, so things don't get lost. So we have people who are skimmers, right? You're going to skim somebody's document. You might not read everything. And so consider that, the skimmers and the deep divers, people who might just be looking for boldface or, and so in this example here, you can see the leadership aspect, the student mentorship aspect, how we created a video to promote the mentoring program, and so on. So lots of different ways to do it. Jeff and Hannah received their promotion this past year, so definitely listen to their feedback. I'm going up this year, so we'll see. this me too? I think so. Okay. So showing evidence of research and professional growth through mentorship. And this is sort of when you were giving your example about mentoring people in many different locations. I was thinking about this professionalism aspect, how we might list our students, graduate or undergraduate, depending on the populations that you work with. Absolutely highlight any co-author, co-leading, co-presenting, anything that shows up as you were mentoring a student. Highlight if they took the lead under your mentorship. Talk widely about research assistantships. You know, our students sometimes have a very small role and sometimes have a very big role. They all matter because that all is included under mentorship. And then emphasize how the mentorship helped the students develop professionally and yourself. So here's an example of professional growth, looking at how you can break up paragraph writing and add in some charts. I think that's really good feedback that I received from my mentor in the teaching documentation workshop. Instead of having every page be a paragraph, include charts and graphs. And so you can talk about the role and nature of the mentorship. Scholarly dissemination is a part of an R1 institution, right? You want to talk about how you are disseminating your information or your scholarly projects and how the students are having a role in that. So here is just one example that talks about graduate and undergraduate students.
And then this is my example that I have is just keeping a running list of different presentations. And what I was meaning by double dipping, I know we kind of use that phrase a lot, but you know, for example, K. Simmons and K. Love, or R. Simmons and K. Love at the top, we did a survey in the social work department for research about the SNAC program. Food insecurity is looking at not only Logan, but also the statewide system. So what we did as part of class is that's part of the mentorship, right? But then we also presented at the fall symposium that we had in Price in the statewide system. So that's a good way to take that teaching and that research, but also have presentations kind of naturally occur out of it. In my policy course, I had the students do a policy analysis, so they have to pick a policy. Traditionally, it's a national policy, so they have to analyze, you know, the history, who it benefits, what recommendations they would make to change the policy. So that's a assignment in class for my teaching. And then once I grade it, I've worked with the TCI journal here at USU to add a policy analysis section to the TCI journal. So then I turn around and I help those students refine that policy analysis. I do a little bit of editing, and they submit it to the open access journal. So something in my teaching is already there, and then I just put out a Canvas announcement. Who would like to be able to have this published? You're probably gonna have to put a little bit more work into it, a little bit more than I required for it to get published, but you know, that's something that we can definitely do. And I've had 2 students take me up on that offer, and both of them has been published in the TCI journal. So I think a lot of times we talk about the double dipping, but I think those are 2 examples. And one example for community service, I have one student who was a BSW. She worked with me on research and presenting for the opioid crisis that we have in Price and Emory. So we collaborated together, but then I counted that as community service when we did the educational dinner. So I had a picture of her and me presenting to not academics, but the community about the opioid crisis that we're having. So that's a good way to kind of not only look at the research, but also the community service that we did in Price. I think Kim.
Is this me?
Yep.
I'm going to go to my, I'm going to go ahead and skip this slide and go to my next one.
Okay.
Spreadsheets on it, yep. You can see that I like graphics, sorry. I'm a graphics girl, not a bullet girl. Okay, so yeah, Hannah, I'm as scattered as you are. So I figured out some hacks though. So I started a spreadsheet color-coded spreadsheet, and you can see that there's quite a bit of narrative on here. I have a page, I've amalgamated this to just kind of show you an example, but I have tabs for each of my students I'm moving it to a Google Sheet, actually, because I learned how to do drop-down in Google Sheet, so I can use a drop-down for, this is for promotion, this is for research, this is for conferences, so I can add drop-down tabs to the squares, which has been phenomenally helpful, getting me even more organized, because I struggle with being organized. But I have columns for each of my students with just meeting notes, just to kind of track their progress and things that they're concerned about. And then I have other columns for presentations, conferences, publications, things that we've done with them, activities that we've attended together. I'm very active in the Roosevelt community, and a lot of my students are employed in the community, so we rely on each other as community partners. And then they're my mentees, but then they're also helping mentor my students. And so one thing that I make sure I do is I write each of my mentees a letter every year outlining the work we've done together and that they can have for their promotion portfolio in their work. And they have been gracious enough to do the same for me. So we're kind of co-documenting with each other. That's very helpful. And on this spreadsheet, then I can include links, QR codes. So the link to our book and our chapter and our case study, they're all on this one spreadsheet, because that's just the way my brain works. I think in columns and rows, and so I just put everything on there. And then when I go to do my narrative or my statement, I can pull things up, and I can use this to craft that document. Another thing that I've shamelessly taught my mentees to do is to use Google Scholar. And maybe this seems a little bit not cool to other people, but I love Google Scholar. I'm a super fan, and my students think it's really cool when they can go in and they can look at their Google Scholar profile. So teaching them to use that. And then finally, how many of you have ever published with like the Journal on Empowering Teaching Excellence or any of the ETE publications? Most academic journals, but all open source journals, they have what they call plum metrics, and this is super cool. Are you guys familiar with this? How many of you already know about this map? Okay, this map is super fun. It's on the ETE website. You can go and look at it, and you can pull up any article from any of our past issues. Yeah, I was the editor-in-chief of this journal for a really long time, so this is like my baby. I'm so proud of this. When I took over this journal, we had about 4,000 downloads, and now we have over 60,000, which is super cool. But it plots it out on the map worldwide of where this specific article is being downloaded. That's cool. And then you can turn this into charts and graphs as well to show, like if you publish, then you can show the impact of your publication. And so being able to work with your mentees, and also this is just one more way to show the impact of whatever research you're doing, including mentorship. So those of you that are working with a wide variety of mentees, these are ways that you can also capture documentation that would go in your dossier that gets you away from that long narrative that people do skim over. Oh, is the reflected journal you?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yep. So this is something too, as far as the reflective journal. What went well? I think Kim gave a really good example, maybe in the mentoring sessions, what they worked on, what didn't go well. Something that we're starting with the micro-credential. We're really thinking about, well, we are doing one in mentorship. So the Engage badge would be what is mentorship, setting ground rules, and then we're going to teach a model called the GROW model, which is basically helping a student not only identify their goals, but what step would help them achieve those goals, right? The implement will be you engage or use that GROW model and do a reflective analysis of it or reflective statement. And then the last one is the contribute or the artifact. And what we're going to do is upload a contract that you can use to say, hey, this is the goal that we kind of outline. These are the steps, but also too, this is my experience working with the student toward the goals. So we're kind of giving you a blueprint to kind of use in order to not only achieve that micro-credential, but also achieve the ETE badges and hopefully help you with your promotional packet as well. Whose is this one?
Oh, I think it's Jim.
I think it's Jim's too.
That's just, the person that couldn't be here, that was just another way that they organize. I use spreadsheets, he uses OneNote.
All right, so I just really want to encourage those of you in Statewide to join the Faculty to Student Mentoring Program. I'm from the Moab campus. We have a very tiny mentoring program. It has kind of gone by the wayside for now. We're hoping to change that. I think the year we had the most, we had 3 students maybe participate, which in fairness, Christian, I'm going to put you on blast. How many students do we have in Moab total? 100-ish? 150-ish?
County current enrollment, 160.
160. So, you know, like 20%-ish. But numbers are small, right? But that doesn't represent the amount of work that faculty are doing with their students. They do so much. We have nursing faculty there who are constantly connecting with their students, and it's just not representative to have only 3 students enrolled, right? It doesn't represent the faculty effort or the student need. And so the faculty mentoring program provides a structure for something that you're doing informally. It provides support. I'm the person in Moab. We pointed out other folks at statewide campuses. And it's a way to make documentation a little bit easier. It's tracked, it's sort of quantified and qualified in some ways for you. And so I'm sort of the pitch for doing it is really helpful for students and for faculty, for promotion, for providing that structure and that guidance as a mentor. I think that's, I'm saying it's a good thing. It's really helpful. Like, I just feel like people put in so much effort and it's not documented, it's not representative. Even when they go in to do their promotion materials, they forget because we just do it. Day to day, we just connect with students and we do it and we help them. And so this is a way of helping you remember all the things you do too.
I think something that's not talked about a lot either is the collaboration with colleagues that has been so tremendously rewarding, of meeting people. You know, if you're in feeling a little isolated in the campus where you are, you don't have a lot of colleagues, or you want to reach out to colleagues in other departments, it's another great way to just engage with people who are doing great things, and you can learn and grow together.
Yeah, and I would say even if you're new, like that was